What do you call a helpful lemon? Lemonade. Today, I'm going to recap a 2009 action crime film called The Code. The film opens in New York with an experienced thief, Keith Ripley, going to a pool area crowded with men and firing a shot at one of them. Next, we see another thief, Gabriel Martin. Ripley watches Martin walking and starts to follow him. Martin, while on a train, pulls out a gun and robs two passengers of a briefcase full of money. He's not just a money thief, but also steals diamonds. Two cops spot Martin with a weapon and chase after him. Martin escapes to the train roof, crawling over it. He gets off the train when it stops and blends into the crowd. Ripley knows Martin is escaping but pretends not to notice. The police check the surveillance footage but can't find the robber. One night, Martin tries to sell the stolen jewels, but Ripley catches him. Martin gives up easily when Ripley takes the jewels, realizing Ripley's gun isn't loaded. Ripley confronts him, demanding they talk immediately. Suddenly, two Russian gangsters approach Ripley, demanding he keeps paying off his debt to their boss. Ripley then tells Martin about an offer, asking to meet at a pub. Owing money to the Russian mob, Ripley needs Martin's help for one last heist to settle his debts. Ripley had seen Martin's skills during the subway robbery and was impressed, especially since he had to eliminate his previous partner, Viktor Korolenko, before they could complete their earlier plan. Ripley's scheme involves stealing two Fabergé eggs, each worth about $20 million. He's thought to have killed Viktor, fearing Viktor might snitch to the New York police, leading to Ripley's arrest. The following day, while Ripley handles some ongoing business, Martin pauses to read a newspaper and encounters a woman named Alexandra, striking up a conversation. Ripley comes back soon after, revealing he knows Alexandra, who is Viktor's daughter. Ripley dislikes the idea of Martin and Alexandra getting close. Ripley then details the heist plan to Martin. They'll rob a Russian museum connected to the Romanovs, a mob group. This gang smuggles Russian artifacts into the US and keeps the NYPD happy with hefty donations and fancy gear. During a walk, Ripley shares his deeper motive for the theft, not just for wealth, but fulfilling a personal whim. He believes his destiny is to be a lifelong thief, dying as one. He hands Martin a rare coin, symbolizing their partnership. The next day, Martin surprises Alexandra with flowers at her workplace. He suggests they meet at a Russian club after her work, but she's hesitant. Martin insists he'll wait for her and leaves. The story shifts to Lieutenant Weber and Michaels, a newbie in the police force. After learning the gems stolen from the train belonged to Russian mobsters, Weber suspects Ripley and Martin are plotting to rob the Romanovs' treasures. Michaels, however, finds this hard to believe, likening it to walking into certain doom. Lieutenant Weber, bearing a long-standing grudge against Ripley, has spent 22 years trying to nail him, but has never managed to gather enough evidence. Viktor, just before being shot by Ripley, had agreed to be Ripley's best man. Later that night, Martin waits at the club for Alexandra to arrive. When she does, they start dancing and talking. Alexandra eventually concludes that the Russian mafia, led by Nicky Petrovich, killed Viktor to make Ripley pay off Viktor's debts. Nicky had offered to forgive Viktor's debts if he helped steal the Fabergé eggs. However, Viktor, concerned for Alexandra, refused and sought witness protection from the NYPD, but the Russians murdered him anyway. After returning home, Alexandra realizes she's lost her house keys and finds Martin inside. They decide to spend the night together. The next morning, Martin wakes up to find Ripley in the room. Ripley warns him to stay away from Alexandra and tells him to get ready. He informs Martin about an upcoming event at the Romanov Museum. Martin attaches a button to Zhikov's clothes that doubles as a tiny video camera. Zhikov, a museum guide, will be their inside man. That evening, Martin and Ripley, disguised as cops, infiltrate the museum party to gather intel about the vault where the eggs are stored. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Weber confronts Ripley, knowing he's not officially invited to the event, but unable to prove it, and eventually leaves. Zhikov, wearing the camera button, starts giving tours around the museum. Ripley and Martin, through the hidden camera, learn about all the security measures of the vault. They're surprised to find that the eggs they plan to steal are in another, even more secure safe. Martin feels discouraged, believing the heist to be impossible. However, he accidentally spills a drink on Zhikov and manages to swipe something from him. Afterwards, he and Ripley step outside, where a group of police officers secretly photograph them. Lieutenant Weber, meanwhile, urges his superiors to be vigilant, convinced that the museum will be targeted for robbery. But his warnings are ignored by the detectives, who have other priorities. Despite the challenges, Ripley and Martin begin executing their plan. In the gym, Martin successfully steals Zhikov's handprint. They also obtain a recording of Sergeyev's voice, another crucial element needed to unlock the safe. One day, Martin surprises Alexandra with a Chinese lunch, but she says she doesn't eat Chinese food. Regardless, they spend time together. Alexandra expresses her fear that Martin might meet the same fate as Victor due to his life of crime. Later, Martin confronts Ripley about Victor's death. Ripley reveals the dire situation they're in, explaining that they must steal the eggs to survive the Russian mob's threats. The mob, led by Nicky Petrovich, grows impatient and kidnaps Alexandra, demanding Ripley steal the Fabergé eggs from the Russian museum as ransom. Nicky claims the eggs are rightfully his, alleging they were crafted by his great-grandfather and stolen from the Kremlin. Motivated by Alexandra's kidnapping, Martin resolves to help Ripley with the heist. On the night of the robbery, they break into the museum through an underground tunnel. A security guard hears the noise and alerts others, but they dismiss it as construction work. When an alarm is triggered, a guard investigates but finds nothing and decides to deactivate the alarm. The thieves then disable the alarm system and acquire the access card needed for the doors. Additionally, Martin manipulates the security cameras, showing the guards pre-recorded footage. Under the threat of a gun, a captured guard misleads the others, claiming it's just a joke. Martin and Ripley then tie up the guard and make their way into the museum, while the remaining guards are distracted with cake. Martin uses Zhikov's handprint, and Ripley plays Sergeyev's voice recording to open the safe. Martin then carefully crosses the floor on a cart to avoid laser security beams and disables the alarm with a special device. They proceed to unlock the next safe. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Weber hears about the museum alarm and instantly suspects Ripley. When Martin finally accesses the eggs, he suddenly turns on Ripley, revealing himself as an undercover Miami cop working for Weber. He leaves Ripley trapped in the vault. As police arrive at the museum, the guards sense something amiss. Martin takes a hostage and forces the other guards to abandon their weapons, then manages to flee just as more police storm in. Inside, Zhikov and Sergeyev discover Ripley, who proposes a deal to them. Martin informs Weber he's completed his mission and must now deliver the eggs to the Russian mobster to secure Alexandra's release. After she's freed, Martin confronts Nicky, only to learn the eggs stolen were wooden fakes. The next day, Martin goes to the police station, where officers have apprehended Nicky. However, Martin discovers the man in custody isn't the same one he dealt with. The real one was Victor, who had faked his death with Ripley's help. It turns out Ripley escaped, making a deal with the Romanovs. He emptied the vault of all smuggled items, including the real eggs, before the police could investigate. This left no evidence of theft, rendering Martin's testimony useless. Additionally, Martin's actions were kept off record to prevent Ripley from learning about the undercover operation. Moreover, Martin's involvement with Alexandra complicates his situation, leading to Ripley's release. Alexandra serves as Martin's lawyer during his bail hearing. Subsequently, Ripley contacts Martin from an airport runway, preparing to fly off with Victor to sell the eggs. In this conversation, Ripley discloses that he and Victor always knew Martin was a cop. Martin later returns to New York to visit Alexandra, who decided to remain there. She assures him that her feelings for him are real. Ultimately, Martin decides to truly embrace a life of thievery. If you enjoyed this video, don't be shy to hit the like button, and if you disliked it, hit the dislike button twice, just to be sure. It would be best if you watched the whole movie. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe for more videos like this.